Let's get started this morning. Again, all four. Thanks again for joining us. Excited to have you and I. My name is Tamika and I am your host this morning. But as before we begin, I just would like to acknowledge that we're joining from different parts of the province, which is made up of Treaty 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10 territories, the gathering land of the Indigenous peoples, and the home of the Métis. And we affirm our relationship with the Indigenous peoples of this territory as we continue to build on reconciliation as we move forward in our journey together. This morning, we're going to be looking at the topic, protecting your staff, guests, and property, practical crime prevention for tourism and hospitality. Creating a safe environment for staff, guests, and property is a critical part of operating a successful tourism or hospitality business. So this practical 1 hour webinar is designed to support tourism and hospitality professionals in strengthening your approach to crime prevention through increased awareness, effective communication, and proven safety strategies. So this morning, with the help of Sergeant Tyler, we will explore how proactive safety practices can help reduce risk, provide a positive workplace culture, and build guest confidence. So we hope that you will be able, this session, will provide practical insights into recognizing potential safety threats, responding effectively to challenging situations, and implementing clear communication and reporting protocols that support prevention rather than reaction, all while maintaining welcoming and professional environments. Our presenter today is no other than Sergeant Tyler Boynton. Sergeant Tyler has been serving his community for over 20 years as an officer with the Regina Police Service, including in the areas of patrol, traffic safety, and forensic identification. He's also a defensive tactic instructor and leads the Community On initiative, which is a collection of crime prevention programs designed to empower the community to work together. Sergeant Tyler cares deeply about his community and appreciates any opportunity to talk about crime prevention. And that's the reason why we have him here this morning. It's over to you, Sergeant Tyler.
Perfect. Thank you, Tamika, so much. I just want to say that, we could have spent probably like a week on this topic alone. And, there's a lot to cover in an hour here. So I'm really going to try and rip through this PowerPoint sort of not as fast as possible, but quickly enough so that we can talk about some of the things towards the end and we have enough time for me to kind of answer some questions. I'm very curious to know how your folks' perspective in the service industry and the hospitality industry, how you guys view these certain events that can happen. I know there's talk about if and when it's going to happen, more so as like if, hopefully, but we do live in a society where there is a criminal element and we need to be aware of signs and different sort of awareness and the all those things come into play, variables, all those things come into play when you're speaking with someone, especially in the service industry, and getting a vibe or an instinct off of them and trying to decide, is this person gonna potentially do me harm or do something from a criminal act point of view. Okay. So like Tamika said, I've been in the service now for 20 years and I've seen pretty much a lot of instances where, if you want to speak to a range of seeing people at their worst to seeing people flourishing and being contributing members of society. Unfortunately, the police go down that road of seeing people at their worst probably more often than seeing people flourish. But like I said, I'm curious to see and curious to hear what you folks have to say when it comes to, as Tamika asked that question right off the hop here about what is you guys are being seen and questions that you might have. So I'll just share my screen here. Okay. So the title, we've gone over this already. We'll jump right in. I want to right away have a quick disclaimer here about um, my perspective is obviously from the police service side of things, which may necessarily not transfer over to the hospitality industry that you folks are representing. And hopefully there is some connection and correlation that we can establish. And hopefully my information that I have for you today can help with your development of policies and procedures that you might have something already in place, might want to add to it, and then we can have a bit of a discussion afterwards. So I think everybody can read this and have a bit of an idea of what a definition might be for situational awareness. I'm pretty sure if I asked every one of you that the definition, you could probably rattle off some of the same words that are in this definition right here. So at the bottom there, knowing what's going on around you and being aware of it. And just want to watch a quick little video here. So it's about 3 minutes long. I'll stop it before it gets right to the end, but just have a watch. Whoops.
This is Brian's game, and it is a lesson in observational skills and situational awareness. How important are these skills in everyday life? Well, I'd say if you're a police officer or if you're in the military, these skills are very important. If you're a martial artist, you'd be interested in developing these skills. Also, if you're a tracker, you'd be interested in these skills. But I think that even just in everyday life, if you practice these skills, you'll get more out of life and keep yourself out of potentially dangerous situations, even if you don't participate in these other activities. I'm going to ask you a series of questions now concerning what you've just seen. Don't rewind the video and don't pause it. Just see to evaluate yourself on your observational skills and your situational awareness. I moved a pop can just a few seconds ago. Do you remember what type of pop it was? Underneath of here, there are a number of coins. Do you remember how many coins? Can you remember what type of coin was on top? I'll let you take a look. It happens to be a quarter. Do you remember what kind is on the bottom? Do you remember if the one on the bottom was heads up or if it was tails up? Actually, it doesn't matter about any of these things, because while I was directing your concentration and your focus on the coins, the situation has changed and somebody, a bad guy with a knife, has stuck up behind you. This is actually obviously a lesson in situational awareness. And yes, I am an amateur magician, but the point of this is not to do a magic trick. The point of this is to make a point about situational awareness. Magicians often use what they call misdirection to direct your attention on one thing so that they can do something else sneakily.
So I I saw this video when I first became a police recruit, and everybody's like, oh, writing down, oh yeah, it was a can of Canada Dry ginger ale diet, and you kind of, oh yeah, I got this, no problem, right? But at the end of the day, who cares about that, right? Because he just showed a knife. Okay, so it goes to the point where how quickly a situation can change by grabbing something out of a pocket or out of the waistband. So it's important that the video is just to kind of give you a bit of like a taste of how quickly and without reason something could change and put put you at risk. Okay, or like for example, in your guys' service, a guest or an employee, and that is what this is kind of about, is making sure that you are paying attention, making sure that you're in a safe sort of environment, even though that might not be doable at certain points at your specific establishment, but knowing that you can get to a safe place is something that should be brought up with your staff, and making sure that they understand that, okay, if we have a situation like this, are we competent to be able to execute and get guests and employees, other staff members, even facility members, with respect to a figuring out what they need to do to get to safety, and call the proper people to come and help. Okay, it's the same thing that goes with a medical emergency. um, I Every time I walk into a public facility, whether that be like a leisure center, a skating rink, I always take note, and this can be something that's trained over the years. I always take note of where the fire extinguisher is, where the AED is, our automated external defibrillation devices. Those are around, and I think everyone should be able to tell where they are when you walk into a facility like that. Um, there's there's other things as well with emergency exits and all those other things. Most people are pretty good to understand when they enter a facility like that, that they know which way to go out if there is some sort of emergency. Okay.
So,
So we'll talk a little bit about the levels of awareness. Um, Pretty straightforward. Tuned out. One thing that comes to my mind when I hear this tuned out, is people that are sitting in a public place and they are 100% focused on their smartphone. Okay. Either they're playing a game or looking up, scrolling, doing something on social media. And you know how easy it would be to like attack someone like that, or, put them in a situation where they like, oh my God, what's going on? And just be at the whim of someone who's trying to do them harm or commit some sort of criminal act. Relaxed would be kind of more just hanging out, kind of looking around, but not obviously fully aware of the environment. Carefully observing, paying a bit of attention of what's going on. Maybe they know where the emergency exits are. Maybe someone has come in and it appears that they might be intoxicated. They would be aware of that, and kind of keep an ear on them or an eye on them to see where they're going. High alert, you've confirmed some sort of a threat, whether that be someone trying to start a fire in the corner of the facility, or someone that might be going to look and see if they try and steal something. We actually had a couple of thefts here in Regina from one of our skating rinks. And what had happened is that people were very trustworthy in leaving their personal belongings in the locker rooms. And a few people had end up leaving their car keys in the locker room as well. So we had a few people come in who were up to no good, obviously, went into the locker rooms, found these car keys, and they ended up stealing the cars from the parking lot. So something to think about. Does this fall into levels of awareness? Absolutely. If you're trustworthy enough to leave personal belongings like that in a public place, okay, you're setting yourself up to be a victim. And that's kind of something that we want to get away from. I mean, obviously, a lot of facilities, public facilities like a skating rink, they don't really have a like locker set up so that you can bring your own lock, or you can have a key system. More often than not, what kind of transpired was that once everyone was on the ice, the facility worker would be going around and locking all the locker. So that kind of took care of that. But at the same time, it's kind of it's one of those things to think about down the road when you're in a public place or using a public facility. And last but not least, being in shock. So we'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later on in the PowerPoint. So that's going to relate to kind of what kind of happens either during or after a kind of traumatic event. Okay. Just really quickly, some elements of crime. So trying to get into the criminal's head in a way and understanding what is going on with respect to them trying to do a criminal act against either a person or property. The elements, and I purposely kind of switched these to make sure everybody's sort of on the same page as I am. I'm hoping that we are thinking along these next few slides about, try and put yourself in the criminal's shoes in a way to adequately explain what they are trying to either accomplish, or if they're just, one of those evil people that happen to be, living among us. Okay. So really quick, the elements, desirability and opportunity. And I switched out desire with motive. That can be interchangeable for sure. They might obviously be impaired by some sort of narcotic, and that could change right away if they're motivated enough to get their next fix. That's why I switched that around, because there can be a lot of give and take with someone who is impaired by some sort of illicit drug, and the motivation for them to get their next fix is, basically unstoppable in a way. Okay, you definitely need the assistance of the police to, kind of stop this individual from like doing harm or trying to commit a theft to go after their next fix. Okay, and obviously, all of these elements could be used against an employee or a guest in your guys' industry, or even just one. Okay, they're all sort of interchangeable. It'd be on like they could go from, if they see someone, for example, for the motive, like I said, with a fix. Ability might be an employee who might be of small stature, or they're very soft spoken, and someone comes along and basically bullies them into committing their crime. And then opportunity, obviously, if your employee is not, I'm not going to say that they're lazy, but maybe they're not paying attention to what they should be doing with respect to maybe looking after the guests at the front desk, or they're in the back on their phone, for example, and there's an opportunity for someone to gain entry into the back area or wherever. Okay. And I just kind of went through a few of these. A lot of people will, especially for the opportunity, if no one's around, they can have their way with like grabbing a tablet or a computer, even a cash box that might be available to them, and they could very well pose a big risk to, like I said, someone who might be of small stature, and really bully them into giving them basically whatever they want or whatever's available for them to steal. So jumping in right away to what you can do as an employee or what you can do, kind of as if you're in a managerial position to help your employee deal with these kinds of situations. Excuse me. So this is a little acronym. Obviously, you all can read. The A is for awareness or aware. The R is for recognize, and M is for minimize. And we'll talk about all of those. So being aware, a lot of this is going to be kind of down the road of common sense and your own personal instincts. So if your situational awareness is on point and you're aware of kind of what's going on in your surroundings, that just feeds into your instincts, and if you want to call it your spidey sense, if you will. And you can, obviously observe individuals who may pose to be suspicious or may pose to be a threat down the road. And you'll be able to, you have that little feeling that, hey, you know what? I just spoke to this one individual and he just seemed really off. He might be intoxicated, or he might be, on some sort of narcotic. And I don't think he's going to be up to no good later on tonight or whatever. Okay. Recognize. This is more of like, I would probably say from your guys' point of view, I mean, I can't put myself in your guys' shoes right now because I don't know what kind of backgrounds you are. My sense right now is telling me, oh, hey, just talk about like a manager over the night or a front desk employee at a hotel who's looking over like the front desk, the lobby area, all those things. And if it's quiet, if it's a quiet night, that's great. But if you have individuals who might be looking to cause trouble or commit some sort of criminal act, okay, understanding like, where do I need to go to be safe? Can I call for help, or do I have access to get help? Is there anyone else working that night, whether it be a facility person looking after like anything, whether that be checking all the doors at the night. And we'll get into more of that down the road here, but I'm trying to really be aware of kind of, and this is why I want to rip through this as quickly as possible so that we can answer some questions at the end here based upon your guys' experiences and your own sort of establishments. And minimize, if you do, this is more so of if something really gets bad in your establishment and you need to be sort of the one who's not necessarily in charge, but one who's going to look out for everybody's safety. Now, I would presume that the employees working in the industry are, kind of liable for like a guest's safety in a way, and anybody else who might be using the establishment or the facility down the road. And, do you have a policy or procedure in place for like a high risk situation? Okay. That's a question that I have for you folks towards the end here. And if you don't, that's okay. But it's something that you should really be looking into as we move into there could be a crime at any time in any place. And if you have instances or elements at your respective business that might be like an eye opener for not only yourselves, but could be something that your employees might be trying to tell you that, hey, look, we have a lot of cash on the premise. Can we have some sort of a safe setup, or do we have some sort of a routine where we can move that cash off site so that it's not here when something bad could potentially happen? And trust me, criminals do pay attention to these kinds of things, and they will make a plan for themselves to see if they can, commit that sort of act or that criminal act when they may be staying at your establishment. They might see something, whether that be out of the corner of their eye, or they might talk to another employee on site. And like, criminals are very like sneaky in a way like that, because that's what they do. Okay, they want to make that score. They want to get away with these types of acts. And that, I mean, that can go from anywhere from theft all the way to like an armed robbery. Okay. And these are just a couple of little things. The big takeaway from this, obviously, is, trust your instincts. If you are, in an environment, obviously an employee won't be able to, retreat and go back into a safe place unless it's okay for them to do that. But using your eyes and your ears, having an instinct, thinking about, okay, this guy's been down in the lobby now for an hour and he's not doing anything. I haven't seen him on his phone. There's all these things, all these variables that can come into play. And, if there's suspicion aroused, then you need to talk to someone. You need to call either the police to come, or if you have security on site at your establishment, okay, they need to go talk to them, or you can go talk to them if you're comfortable in doing that, and if your employer wants you to do those kinds of things as well. Just some more things as well. Being aware of your surroundings and understanding. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody has a photographic memory with respect to faces coming in and out of the business, but there should be enough awareness from your staff members to say, like, oh yeah, this gentleman was in here. He had a blue shirt on, glasses, and a ball cap or something like that, right? They should be able to recognize certain attributes. And I'll be honest with you guys, it's 2026. You should have video surveillance in your business, 100%. The cheapest cameras that I've seen on Amazon, like $35. So something to think about as well. And video surveillance is something that is, more than worth its weight in gold when it comes to a serious incident. And to back up your employees, help your police service and investigations. And it's one of those things that everybody should have, especially if you run a business, just because it just covers off so many things when it comes to like insurance and criminals, helping the police, all those types of things. So let's move right along here. Some de-escalation. Few things when it comes to kind of the whole mainstay of this topic. There's no real magic formula in how to, deal with someone, to talk them down or to get them to do what you want them to do. It really comes along with, if the certain aspects that go down when the individual you're dealing with presents a aggression state, or presents a state in which they're desperate for money or something along the lines of they need this to like feed their family or whatever. Okay. It's really about how well you can deal with the individual and, return their dignity to them, even though they're in a sort of a state in which they are potentially going to commit a crime, even if it's against a person or if it's against stealing a property. Okay. Everyone wants to be treated with respect and dignity. That's kind of the primary element to de-escalation. And the other pieces of this is going to be, they want to be asked rather than told, informed why they're being asked, options, and possibly a second chance. And this is just, speaking with someone in a very respectful way. And there's a lot of probably give and take when it comes to dealing with someone like this. I can only give you my own experiences, but I would hope that some of you have been in sort of this situation where, you you want to help this person out and or try and understand what they are going through, and hopefully you can get on the same level as them to adequately, de-escalate the situation, right? So everybody can probably rattle off a few of these just by talking about it. Some of the big ones, I think probably the biggest ones are probably going to be the nonverbal. Obviously, if you're speaking with someone and they use a lot of profanity, it is very common for that person who's speaking to them to also use a lot of profanity. That kind of gets you down onto that same level as I was talking about. So I would probably not go down. I'd probably not go down the road of like if the person is like shouting at the top of their lungs at you, I probably wouldn't shout back at the top of my lungs at them. But the swearing could be used as a good example for getting on the same page with them and getting it at their level. Okay. Like I said, the nonverbal cues, even though very subtle, you can really tell. I mean, I've watched a lot of use of force videos, and you can really tell when someone is about to, make some sort of a move or attack in a way. Kind of the big ones are the clenched fists, a fixed stare. They might be kind of moving their head around, loosening up their neck for some sort of a movement to come. And like there's so many that lots of people that they don't really realize. And obviously, nonverbal cues from the person who's trying to do the de-escalation. I know one for me is when I was speaking with someone a lot, and I'm trying to get them to back down a little bit. I would do a lot of crossing my arms in front of my chest, and like that to me, looking at it from like a different perspective, that is very confrontational when you do that in front of someone. Okay, so you're better off. Just a little tidbit. You're better off to kind of put the maybe hand on the chin, trying to understand. Okay, yes, I understand what you're saying. Is there any way that I can help you through this? Blah blah blah. Okay, so just these little cues are very important when it comes to the de-escalation technique. So, I mean, if you think about de-escalation is verbal and nonverbal, I would probably even say, I wouldn't even say 50-50. I'd probably say the nonverbal is more like maybe 70%, and the 30 is probably the verbal aspect of it. That's just from my own experience, obviously. Eye contact is super important. Trying to understand, what their means are, what are they going through. Okay. And like I said, there's no magical formula for this. It's just about talking to people, trying to get them on the same page as you, trying to understand, what's going on right now. Obviously, there's going to be branches that go off, and they deal with persons that are intoxicated, and persons that are impaired by some sort of narcotic, and that's a whole different sort of ball game. That's where you probably need to exhibit some sort of type of control on them, especially if they start getting very aggressive, and then you need to go maybe hands on, or you need to retreat to a safe space and get to a point in which you can call for help and get others to safety if it goes down that road, obviously. Okay. Whole bunch of things here with the active listening. That's kind of what I hammered home here already with treating people with respect and dignity. That kind of falls into place in my mind, at least, with the active listening. Go over again and again what they're trying to do. Like, why are you doing this? Can you tell me why? Getting to the root of that problem can really bring someone down if they're really aggressive, and trying to be confrontational and trying to get them to do what they want you to do. Sometimes it's good to let them ramble on and on and on, like I'm doing right now. But I, it's okay to interrupt them every now and again because you want to keep them on a certain pace and a certain level. Okay. Um, I always, when I'm interviewing someone, I always use that one down at the bottom there a lot. It's like, so what you're saying is, and I'll repeat kind of what they said, and I'll go down that road of saying like, hey, I totally get it. I really do. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you're feeling? Um, are you doing this because someone forced you to do this? Are you doing this because they have your daughter hostage or something like that? I'm just making things up as I go along, depending on how I feel about what we can do, right? So, some intervention examples. A common one that I've seen is someone maybe is uh, upset about their like hotel bill, and they want to say like, hey, I didn't whatever take the nuts from the refrigerator in the hotel room, but there might be something that they're really upset about, and you might not be able to uh, adequately tell them like, hey, you know what, I'm sorry, maybe we can find another option about this, maybe we can go down a different path, but I don't know what sort of things you guys have in place at your respective businesses, establishments. And that's something that we can get to here. I'm going to run out of time if I want, but so people in crisis, this is going to be kind of off one of those branches. If they're totally off the handle and the de-escalation isn't going to work, then you got to start, focusing on what's going to happen next. Okay. Is a crime going to be committed? Then we have to move on. We have to get the proper people here, whether that be security or police. If you have other employees on site at the time, get them to come. The more witnesses, the better. If something like this is going to happen, obviously being safe as well, but being able to keep them talking. Maybe you can hey, so and so that just arrived. I'm dealing with this one. I'm on the phone, whatever. Can you just call the police really quick? And then back to this individual. They might get mad about that for calling the police, but it still needs to be done. Hopefully, the employee would see the situation, the other employee would see the situation, and automatically call the police or security or whatever else needs to be, whoever else needs to be called. Okay. So intoxicated persons. I'm sure everyone has be able to describe someone who's intoxicated by alcohol. Um, More or less now we're dealing with a lot of people who are intoxicated by a narcotic. And, there's going to be instances where you might not even know. Really quick story from my end. We were dealing with someone at a hotel lobby who was completely out of it. Nonverbal, wasn't able to answer any questions, and this individual was barking like a dog. And then when we went outside, got the individual under control. We went outside, and they began howling at the moon. So obviously, there's something that's not right, because I've been intoxicated before, and I haven't had the urge to howl at the moon. So we got them out safely into our car, back to our detention area, and we actually got someone to come down and do a bit of a medical assessment on them, and they ended up being very high on ketamine. And it was a very interesting experience to see someone who was, basically acting like an animal, if you will. Luckily, we were in a position that uh, there was no um, there's no indication that he wanted to like engage us in a fight or something like that, which is great because it's tough to be in a situation like that, and someone we don't know if that narcotic could make them almost in a way superhuman. So it was good that we approached very calmly, got them under control, into our handcuffs, and then escorted them out into our police vehicle. So very weird very weird kind of story, I know, but it's not uncommon that some individuals, they will take anything and everything just to get that next high. And speaking of high, so drug use, we do have a problem in this province with drug use, especially fentanyl and all of its analogs. So you can see right away in that first picture there what they call the some people will call it the Fenty fold, where they're completely out of it. They're folded over at the waist, and they're could be standing still or maybe just stumbling along the sidewalk. But that instance is very, very difficult to deal with. We don't know how they will come out of that. And talking about this right now, does your staff know how to use Narcan? Do they have Narcan on site if something like that happens? Okay. I actually had a bit of a personal scare. I was testing some narcotics in one of our quick bags that you can mix with a chemical, and it actually broke. There's a glass tubule inside that you have to break to mix the chemicals to figure out what kind of drug it is. And it actually broke on me, and it cut through my glove that I was wearing. So I had to get rushed off to the hospital, and I was just under observation. Nothing ever happened. I didn't get anything ingested in my skin, but if you get into a situation where an individual might be doing the drug on site or something like that, and if you go to pick up like a plastic baggie, or if you go to pick up a pipe like that in the picture, there can be residual drugs on it, and it can get absorbed through your skin, and you can get a reaction to it. Okay. So that's another avenue that probably should be looked at from your guys' point of view. Like, what kind of safety protocols could you have in place when it comes to dealing with a drug that might be left behind, like in your hotel lobby or your establishment that you have? Obviously having gloves readily available to pick something up like this, and those kinds of things, they're not uncommon. Okay. Needles on the ground. Okay. There should be a protocol to pick those up. I think here in Regina, there's a number that you have to call, and I think a branch of the fire department will come and dispose of that needle. Okay. So let's get into if you are actually confronted and you're in that position where someone is trying to do harm or commit a criminal act, the biggest thing you can do is comply, give them whatever they want, and keep yourself out of safe or harm's way. If you're able to, try and remember points of identification, tattoos. If there was a weapon involved, what kind of weapon was it? Clothing, anything and everything goes a long way. If this individual, obviously is going to flee after the act is done, and then obviously you need to be able to give that sort of information to the police. And like I said before, another little harmless plug, you should have a surveillance camera on site that catches a lot of this, so that you're able to give the police that sort of evidence, and we can get that out to our membership to be on the lookout and put out a bolo for that individual. Okay. This is what I talked about earlier with the comatose state. So there's 3 different physiological responses when you're involved with a traumatic experience: fight, flight, or freeze. Now would be the comatose reaction, right? Most people will go down that flight. They'll try and get away. They'll do what they can to get away and get into a safe place. And if you have the training and if you're comfortable engaging someone, okay, the fight option is obviously there. Okay, that's part of our DNA. It's in our physiology. But I would never wish anyone to be in a situation like that and they just freeze, because then you're just at the whim. There's ways that you can train this. However, you have to get sort of into that mindset and getting into sort of like a scenario in your mind, also practicing it as well. Okay. I don't want to spend too much more time because we're just about done here. I want to get into the questions, but really quickly, self-defense. I'll read this really quickly. Under Section 34, Sub 1 of the Criminal Code, everyone who is unlawfully assaulted without having provoked the assault is justified in repelling force by using force, as long as the force used is not intended to cause death or grievous bodily harm and is no more than is necessary to defend oneself. Okay, so what that means is that if someone's attacking you, you have the right to attack back, only to stop them from attacking. Okay, and you can see the example down here. I can hit someone back and to stop them what they're doing, and then I need to get to a safe place. Okay, I am not going to go and get into my vehicle or grab a weapon and intentionally go and hurt that person even though they have stopped. Okay, that goes into jeopardy for yourself, and you'll be the one that's accountable, right? So if you go and hop in your car and run them over a bunch of times, okay, you're looking at a murder one, more than likely. Okay. When to call 911, pretty straightforward. Okay. You're in an emergency that you can't control. There's a crime that's actively happening, and there's a threat to someone's life and or safety. And these are just some reporting incidents. I just wanted to make a quick note about the Crime Stoppers is a very good program. If you do happen to have a suspicious individual in your vicinity, it doesn't hurt to check the Crime Stoppers Facebook page or online, or the Instagram page, and look and see if there's any recent posts regarding people that are wanted, or if you can identify anything like that. Also, for the folks in Regina, on the RPS website, there's always people on there, from shoplifting incidents all the way to serious crimes, in which they are wanted as well. And I hope everyone knows about SCAN. If you know of a property near your if you know of a property that's near your place, your establishment, SCAN is definitely something that should be looked into if you suspect there's drugs or any sort of criminal activity that might be going on. Okay. All right. So I'll look back in the chat here. And if Tamika,
Yes.
you want to give a hand.
All right, the questions will be, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, the questions, I think they're going to be coming in shortly. So
Sure.
again, Sergeant Tyler just wants to speak to your own situation, your own unique situation. So you could put those in the chat if you do have any questions. I do have a question for you. You were mentioning about active listening and listening, talking just to find out, just to get an understanding of what is really happening if you're confronted with someone, in terms of those behaviors that are unwelcoming. But I know that tourism operators, they have to strike a balance between whether or not being welcoming and how. Well, the question that I wrote is that how do
Yep.
tourism operators balance being welcoming and being guest focused while still setting firm boundaries and enforcing the rule, because they have to deal with the situation, but how do they create that balance?
Right. I think probably the key aspect with that is not necessarily being withdrawn from someone, but maintaining your professionalism, and making sure that they understand right away, as soon as you say that first hello or good evening, sir, good evening, ma'am, that is established right away, and making sure that they understand, like, hey, I'm not a person to be like confronted or messed with in a way. And having a very clear presence. In my point of view, when I have this uniform on, we have this thing we call command presence. Okay, in your case, for your industry, it would be more so of a probably industry presence in a way, right? So if you have a nice tidy uniform on with your tourism logo or whatever industry logo, like that's kind of sets the bar right away, in my mind at least, that this individual is someone who is intelligent and shouldn't be tested in a way. Okay, and it starts with, like I said, I think some of those nonverbal cues can be sort of established right away when you're speaking with someone. Are your hands in your pockets? Are they in front of your chest? Or are you sitting back in the chair? Right? There's a lot of things that go down that road of what is professional and what is deemed as, oh, hey, this guy's just here to be lazy, or he's here to just to be pushed around. Okay, if that
Okay.
answers it from there. Yeah.
Okay. I'm seeing some questions coming in now. So sorry about that. One of the questions is, this person says, the front door is right in the middle of downtown, small, is right in the middle of the downtown bus mall.
Yeah. Yeah.
So right now they have to lock it at all times, and they're hoping that in the future they'll be able to open the doors,
Mhm.
to have an open door concept to their office so that their guests are able to come in. So what are some safety procedures they can go through for that? With the doors being locked, they've already had several encounters with intoxicated persons trying to come
Right.
in.
Right. Um, I know that I threw on that resource page that making sure all of the windows and everything that sees kind of into the outside and the exterior by like a said door like that, they're clear and you can adequately see kind of what's going on. Okay. Um, Maybe if they have to keep them locked, okay, then obviously there's a reason why. I honestly would really have to come and observe to see kind of what would be the best course of action when it comes to something like that. But if you're at a position where let's say, for example, there's only one individual working over the night, and you have an intoxicated person, banging on the door, let me in, let me in, I'm a guest here. Um, you know, you're running a business here, right? Because and if you don't want their business, and if you have a strict, like, let's say for example, when they check in, hey, we lock this door at whatever 2 a.m. We don't want anyone else coming in unless you have a key card, and making sure that you are able to look after yourself. Because when police deal with someone who's intoxicated, our first in policy, our first go-to is to find like a family member, or to find someone to look after them. Okay, and if they're not able to do that, and they're on your property, I don't know all the intricacies of all the liability for if he collapses and chokes on his own vomit, but you know there's a point in which where you have to be like, okay, I need some help with this because I'm not sure how to proceed. Then you might need to consider calling the police. Or if you know that guest, or whatever circumstances are in there, maybe they have another person that they're staying with. Maybe they can come and deal with that. Okay. It's tough for me to talk about that just through words here. I really need to see how it's set up to really kind of give a good solid answer. I hope that kind of helps a little bit. So.
All right, so we're talking about quick response, Sergeant Tyler.
Mhm.
So which would be quicker to get a response? Is it to dial 911 for all situations that require police presence, or do do you think the special constables would be able to respond? And do you have another number that they're able to call for emergency situations or for theft or
Well,
trespassing?
well, like I said, it's based. Our people in dispatch have a severity and priority of certain calls. So obviously, you're not going to call 911 for a trespassing. You're better off just to put in a call for service to the non-emergent line. And here in Regina, it's 777-6500, and that will be placed in the queue for the constables that are working on the streets to attend and make a decision based upon that. As for the special constables downtown, here in Regina, it's been a very good program that we've been running. There's no direct line to them. Everything goes through dispatch. So you're going to have to go and call that non-emergent line like, hey, I have this individual here like looking to commit a theft or whatever. Obviously, like I said in the slideshow there, 911 is specifically for emergencies only. Okay.
All right, we do have another one. You did spoke about when to call 911, but are you
Yep.
able to give a quick rundown in terms of what to expect when you call 911?
Well, first of all, obviously someone's going to answer, I hope.
Yeah.
But the big thing is going to be you should have information that you're ready to tell the call taker right away so that they can get that information down as they, process it and, make it into a call for service so that they can properly dispatch officers to that location. So right away, the first thing that I would probably be saying, like, hey, this is so and so from, for example, this hotel on blah 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 Victoria Avenue. Um, Please attend right now. We have an individual who is whatever suffering a cardiac arrest. Okay, so that means that right away we'll get the address in. Dispatch will be on. There is there's no perfect way right now. Like we can't um, because all that information has to get put onto a computer. Like trust me, the dispatch people are fast, but I mean, it's not like you can call and someone will be there within like a minute. Okay, that's just not feasible unless someone's really close by, obviously, right? So I think you have to be able to describe what's going on and be willing to give information because that's what the call takers are supposed to do. Because this isn't just about dealing with the call for service. It's also about officer safety too, right? If we have an understanding that maybe the individual fits a description from earlier in the day, and this individual was extremely violent, then we're going to need probably more officers on scene. So there's some give and take there in a way, and I think a lot of people don't realize that this isn't just about public safety, but it's also about officer safety as well. Okay.
Mhm. This question is, I think, tied to the very first one that was asked. Um, how do you deal with a person that does not have a reason to be on the premises, but
Okay.
they're not harming anyone? They are making the patrons uncomfortable, and the individual assume that they are homeless. They don't want to be rude, but you still have to look out for all of your guests. How do you
Yeah.
maintain that balance?
Well, I mean, in Saskatchewan, we have the Trespassing Act, and you can read up on that. It's available online, and there might be something in there that you see that could be useful for you. Obviously, if you call the police to attend, we need someone who is there, obviously working to confront the person while police are present, and then we can escort the person off the premises. Okay. As for it's kind of a touch and go thing. If you ask them to leave without police being there, and they say "f off," I don't want to talk to you. I'm not hurting anyone by being in here. Well, you know, I get it to a point, but obviously you're trying to look out for your guests and make sure that this person's up to no good. And if they have no reason to be in the lobby of the hotel, um, you know you might need to look into having the police attend, or if you have a security firm or something like that, maybe give them a call and they can come and say, hey, look, you're not supposed to be here. We'd appreciate it if you leave, and just kind of go from there. There's a lot of things to take into account when it comes to something like that, because you don't want to be a victim of retaliation for something like that as well. But at the end of the day, you're still running a business, and I think like a lot of people are afraid to go down that road of possibly offending someone, or even going down the road of like refusing service as well. Okay, but I think that's still something that is valid in today's age. People are just afraid sometimes to kind of go down that path. And I think like especially for the homelessness, I mean, maybe maybe chat them up a little bit and see like, hey, maybe there's something that you can help them with. And it doesn't hurt to talk to someone if they're clearly intoxicated or impaired by some drug. Obviously that's a different story, but maybe you just chat them up and like, hey, maybe they're looking for a glass of water. Like you just don't know, right? So it's not a bad idea to talk to them a little bit. But if they're complete and utter, like they have no reason to be in there and they're being like rude or begging for money from your guests, then if I was in that situation, I would probably kick them out. And if they came back, be like, look, I'm calling the police now, and I don't want you ever to set foot in here. Because like a lot of people that do the shoplifting, they get bans in place for being in the premise if they step foot in there again, and it's an automatic go to jail. So I don't know if there's something that can be looked at with respect to people that are coming into your establishment and you've banned them in some way. I don't know what the implications are for something like that, but something to look at, I guess, too. So
Okay. I think just one more question, and I think this one it
sure.
would be very important. You mentioned liability when you spoke of some liabilities that may happen. And I was
Yep.
just thinking is that, liabilities may happen. So the question that I'm asking is, what would be the biggest liability pitfalls that you see for tourism operators after an incident, and how what are some simple steps that they could use to maybe just reduce the risk?
Probably making sure that your staff is well trained in some sort of a incident response, if you will. And that doesn't necessarily have to be a criminal act, but a medical emergency. If someone has a heart attack in the middle of the hotel lobby, okay, is your staff adequately prepared to assess the situation, um, deal with it, get the person the help that they need, and otherwise, right? Like you can go down a bunch of different pathways when it comes to if the staff is unprepared and they're scrambling and there's chaos and all these things that come along with these types of events, and it could be seen as hey, we don't have an AED on site. Okay, and if we do have one, is the staff able and competent to use it in a situation? So like I think and I'm not trying to tell your guests that we have here today that you should be thinking about all of this, but you should be at least having a something in place, or thinking about putting something in place with respect to.
We're not hearing you. We're not hearing you. I'm not so sure what
Oh,
happened.
I don't know what
Your
the.
sound, yes, go ahead.
Oh,
Good.
is it okay? Okay. I don't know what the implications are with some of your like procedures and policies at some of these establishments. I don't know if there's some sort of a like if it's like a business protocol that has to be in place for like for example for like a hotel. I'm not sure, but you know I think overall there should be at least a conversation started about you know are your employees that work at your establishment able to handle some type of emergency situation or any situation really when it comes to a criminal act or like a theft or a robbery, like I have on the resource page that I've sent you. It would be something good to look through with your employees and say like, hey, have you guys ever had a instance where you know you didn't know what to do? Right? I'm sure that would come up a lot down the road if our managers and people started asking their employer or their employees like, hey, have you ever encountered a situation where you know you probably could have used some training that might have would have helped. So as for liability, I mean, like I said, I don't know if there's um, I only have a reference in my brain from the criminal code aspect of things and more so of you know sort of criminal acts. I don't know if there's anything from like the public sector or the private sector that has something in place that says, hey, your employee needs to be you know whatever safe in like I know there's stuff for there's a protocol for safe handling of food, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know if there's anything for something along the lines of like a medical emergency. So,
Right. It is 9 past 11, and we've
yeah,
gone almost 10 minutes over. I'm sure that there are more questions that could be asked, but um, we we don't want to, we want to be respectful, sorry, of everyone's time and not to
yeah,
extend this any further. But thank you so much, Sergeant Tyler, for sharing those practical, I would say, real world guidance tips that will definitely help the tourism and hospitality, operators just to protect the staff, their guests, their
yeah.
property, while maintaining that and welcoming environment for everyone. So thanks again, everyone, for being here with us. We do hope that you've found it quite fruitful and that there is something that you're able to implement. And then Sergeant Tyler did mention if you don't have a protocol or, sorry, a policy in place, this is a time to start thinking about it in terms of what if this happens? How would I, react or, providing your staff with the skills, the know-how, who to contact, when to contact, how to escalate things so that they can feel safe as they're dealing with these situations as they arise. And just to let you know that this is a final webinar for the series. I just want to take the time out just to thank everyone for taking the time to learn, to be along this learning journey with us. And we did focus on a number of different topics, and we do hope that you have found everyone beneficial and that there is something that you're able to implement, some strategies that you're able to implement along the way just to strengthen your tourism business. Thank you so much.